I've always believed that family comes first. No matter how hard things got, I told myself that if it's for my parents, it's worth it. I was the kind of daughter who didn't wait to be asked for help. I'd already be there fixing things before anyone even noticed something was wrong. When my parents' business started falling apart, I didn't think twice. I left my dream job in the city, the one I had worked so hard to get after college, and moved back home to help them. People around me were shocked. Some even called me foolish. But I thought, they're my parents. If I won't stand by them, who will? At first I thought they'd be proud. I thought they'd hug me, thank me, maybe even say, "We're lucky to have a daughter like you." But those words never came. Instead, all I ever heard was, "You're just doing your duty," as if what I gave up didn't matter. I was putting in 12-hour days, dealing with frustrated clients, balancing accounts that barely made sense, and trying to pull a sinking business back to life. But when my brother walked in and smiled, my mother would light up like the sun had returned home. So I didn't stop. I gave up my vacations when my friends invited me. I watched my savings disappear slowly, first for inventory, then for unpaid wages, then for repairs. My phone stopped ringing for casual dinners and weekend plans. I said no so many times that people stopped asking. My world shrank to that office, those endless receipts, and my parents' tired faces. I told myself this was temporary. That one day when things got better, they'd look back and realize what I had done. Maybe they'd see the way I carried their burdens quietly without asking for credit. I didn't want much, just a little warmth, a little thankfulness. But no matter how much I gave, it always felt like I was standing outside, waiting to be let in. I smiled in front of them, but many nights I cried myself to sleep, wondering why love had to feel so lonely. I think a part of me always knew I was never really seen the way I wanted to be. Even when I was little, the difference in how they treated me and my brother was clear. He could spill juice on the new carpet and Mom would laugh it off like it was cute. If I accidentally broke a glass while helping, I'd get the cold stare, the kind that made you feel like you didn't belong. I was always told I was too sensitive, too emotional, or too dramatic, as if feeling things deeply was a crime. My brother, he was the golden boy. When he got AC in school, they'd say, "At least he passed." But when I got an A, they'd say, "Next time, aim for full marks." I remember one time I won a regional science fair. First place. I came home so excited, holding my trophy, expecting at least a smile. But my dad just glanced at it and said, "That's good. But don't forget your brother's football tryouts are next week." That night I placed the trophy on the shelf myself. No one asked how the event went. No one even said they were proud. It was the same story as we grew up. I learned how to talk to people, how to read between the lines, how to negotiate deals. I saved more than one client from walking out the door when our business was struggling. I stayed up nights writing reports and plans to increase sales. And when things started improving even a little, I thought maybe now they'd notice. But whenever someone complimented my efforts, my father would say, "She's just helping out. This is still my business." Or worse, "When your brother is ready, he'll take over." As if I was just keeping the seat warm for him. My brother rarely showed up. When he did, it was just for an hour or two, usually on his phone, barely listening. But my parents treated him like he was the future of the family legacy. I was the one doing the work, but he was the one getting the credit. I didn't say anything. I just smiled, swallowed the bitterness, and kept going. I told myself I was doing it for the business, for the family name, for the people who depended on us. But deep down it hurt. It hurt to be invisible in your own home, to have your worth measured not by your efforts but by your gender or your silence. It felt like no matter what I did, I was always outside the circle, looking in, hoping someone would reach out and pull me close. But they never did. Not then. Not ever. It was the week of Christmas, and while the whole town seemed to be slowing down, I was still in the office, hunched over spreadsheets and invoices, trying to close the year-end accounts. Everyone else had already left for the holidays, but I stayed behind, not because I had to, but because I wanted to make sure everything was perfect before the new year. Felt like maybe, just maybe, this would be the year they'd finally say thank you. That morning I had gone out early to buy gifts for everyone. Mom, Dad, my brother, even his girlfriend. I wrapped each present with care, choosing things I knew they'd love. I imagined their reactions, the smiles, the warmth around the dinner table. I hadn't celebrated properly in years, always too busy working, but this time I thought, this year will be different. I even bought a dress for myself. Something soft, simple, and beautiful. Something that made me feel like I belonged. I left the office a little after 8 p.m. on Christmas Eve. The roads were quiet, the sky clear. I drove slowly, my heart full of a strange mix of nerves and hope. I reached the house and parked outside, ready to walk in with my arms full of gifts and a smile on my face. But just as I reached for the door handle, my phone buzzed. It was a message from Mom. "We've decided to keep it a small family dinner this year. You're not welcome. It's better if you don't come." I stared at the screen, reading it again and again, hoping I had misunderstood. But the words stayed the same. Clear. Final. I didn't even realize when the tears started falling. My hands were still holding the wrapped gifts, but my whole body went numb. I sat there, frozen in my car, watching through the window as the house lit up with laughter and warmth. I could see shadows moving, hear muffled voices, the clinking of plates and glasses. They were inside celebrating. And I was out here, not even considered part of the small family. That night, something broke inside me, not in an angry, loud way, but in a quiet, devastating silence. I had always known I was an outsider. But this time they didn't even try to hide it. I don't think they ever really understood how much I was holding together. Not just the business, but everything. For the past 6 months, I hadn't taken a single salary. Not because I didn't need the money, but because I wanted to show them I was invested, that I believed in the future of what we were building. My only agreement with my father, the one formal thing we had discussed months ago, was that I'd receive a year-end bonus, tied strictly to the profits I helped generate. That was it. No monthly pay, no allowances, just that final bonus if the company stayed afloat and did well. And it did more than just stay afloat. It survived because I made sure it did. While my brother slept till noon and my parents argued over expenses, I was the one calling suppliers, negotiating with vendors, fixing broken contracts, and most importantly, keeping the clients happy. I knew every detail about what each client needed. I knew when to be gentle, when to push, and when to back off. They trusted me, not my father, not my brother, me. I was the voice they picked up the phone for. And because of that, the money came in. But my parents, they never saw that. Or maybe they chose not to. What they didn't know was something far more important. A few months ago, my father had needed to restructure some financial paperwork due to tax and legal reasons. At the time, he had trusted me to help with it, mainly because I was the only one who understood how the banking side worked. And in doing so, he had signed over limited power of attorney to me, giving me legal control over certain financial decisions and business accounts. It was supposed to be temporary, just a formality, something they all assumed I'd never use. But now, sitting in my car outside a house I wasn't welcome in, I felt that silence in my chest finally shift into something else. Not just pain, not just sadness, but clarity. They had shut the door on me without hesitation after everything I'd done. And they had no idea that the person they'd excluded was the same one who legally held the strings to their business's survival. They thought they were punishing me by cutting me out of dinner. But what they didn't know, what they hadn't even cared to ask, was that the entire business now rested on the decisions I made. They thought I was just some emotional daughter who worked out of duty. But they never saw the woman who had become the backbone of everything they took for granted. And for the first time I realized, I didn't have to stay quiet anymore. I drove away from the house slowly that night, my mind strangely calm. The kind of calm that comes not from peace, but from a decision finally made. I didn't cry anymore. I didn't feel sad or broken. Just focused. Focused in a way I hadn't been in years. For once, I wasn't going to beg for a place at the table. I was going to show them what it felt like when the person they'd treated like a ghost suddenly disappeared. For real this time. The next morning I went straight to the office. It was Christmas Day and no one else was there. I sat at my desk, turned on my computer, and opened the company's financial dashboard. I knew every number by heart. Every invoice, every vendor contract, every client file. I had handled them all. My bonus, based on profits I had generated, was right there. $68,000. With steady fingers, I transferred it into my personal account. No hesitation. I had earned it. I had bled for it. And it was legally mine. Then I opened the supplier contracts. I drafted clear termination letters, using the authority my father had unknowingly given me months ago. I sent them off, polite, professional, effective immediately. These weren't just any contracts. These were the suppliers who relied on me for coordination, who would now be left confused and stranded. Without me, they'd hesitate to continue business. That ripple effect was only beginning. Next, I logged into the CRM system where we tracked all active deals and projects. One by one, I pulled my name out from every single upcoming deal I had personally handled. There were at least 7 big accounts, clients who only stayed because of me. I notified them that I was stepping away from the business due to internal restructuring. I didn't badmouth anyone. I didn't need to. They'd feel the shift immediately, and I knew some of them would follow wherever I went next. Lastly, I called our in-house accountant. Calmly, I told him, "Please pause all outgoing payments until further board meeting approval. There will be some changes and we need to review everything." He didn't question it. After all, he knew I was the one keeping the business on its feet. There was no screaming. No accusations. No emotional breakdowns. Just emails sent. Systems updated. Accounts cleared. One click at a time. My revenge didn't come with noise. It came with silence. With actions too professional to challenge. With decisions that spoke louder than any argument ever could. They didn't want me at their dinner table? Fine. But now they would know what it felt like to be left out of something that mattered. Something they had always assumed was theirs, until I reminded them who really held it all together. The house was filled with the warmth of Christmas dinner. The sound of laughter, the clinking of silverware, the soft hum of music in the background. It all seemed so perfect. My parents smiling like everything was just as it should be. My brother still acting as if he didn't have a care in the world, his face lit up with the glow of a glass of wine in his hand. It was the kind of scene I used to dream of. One where we were all together, happy, celebrating. But it wasn't real. Not for me. And certainly not for them. I could hear them chatting, but my thoughts were a million miles away, far removed from their happy little bubble. It wasn't until my father's phone rang that I felt the first crack in the calm. He answered it immediately, his voice changing from casual to sharp as soon as he heard the news. "Wait, what do you mean the payment bounced? That can't be right," he said, his tone rising in alarm. I could hear the frustration, the confusion. He was used to being the one who controlled the flow of money, the one who was always on top of everything. But now he sounded like he was losing control of something important. Before he could finish the call, another one came in and the panic was unmistakable. "Your shipping order's been cancelled?" He barked into the phone. Who the hell would cancel an order like that? It's Christmas Eve. He slammed the phone down, his hands shaking slightly. At this point, I saw my mother glance up from her plate, her expression turning concerned. "What's going on, George?" she asked, her voice carrying just a hint of worry. But my father didn't answer her right away. He just stared at his phone like it was a foreign object, unable to comprehend what was happening. His face had gone pale, and the confusion in his eyes told me everything I needed to know. He had no idea how it had all slipped away so quickly. And that's when I stepped into the room. I opened the door slowly, watching their faces as they turned to me in surprise. They weren't expecting me. Not after everything they'd said. I held the wrapped gifts in my hands, the same ones I had spent hours picking out and wrapping earlier in the week. I set them down on the table, my voice colder than I had ever intended it to be. "Oh, I just came to return the gifts." I paused, watching them all look at me, their faces confused and a little afraid. "And collect mine," I finished, my eyes meeting my father's with a calm that betrayed everything I felt inside. There was no anger in my voice. No screams. Just the quiet satisfaction of knowing I had taken back what was mine. And it was all too late for them to fix anything. The silence that filled the room was suffocating. My father stood frozen, his phone still in his hand, the color draining from his face. My mother's eyes darted between me and the table, like she was trying to piece together the puzzle in front of her. My brother, who hadn't fully grasped the situation yet, was still sipping his wine, his carefree smile faltering as the tension in the room grew thicker. I didn't care about their confusion anymore. I didn't care about the way they were staring at me as if I had just done something unspeakable. The truth had been staring them in the face for years, and they refused to acknowledge it. But now I was the one in control. Now I was the one who had nothing left to lose. I took a deep breath and let the words flow. "You pushed me out," I said, my voice steady. "So I stepped out. But I didn't leave empty-handed. I took what was mine before walking away." I let those words sink in. I wasn't apologizing. I wasn't making excuses. I was just stating the truth. They stared at me, their faces shifting from confusion to anger. My mother opened her mouth to say something, but I cut her off before she could even start. "You never saw me. You never saw the work I put in," the nights I spent away from everything just to keep this business alive. I carried it when you couldn't be bothered. And when I needed you, when I hoped for just a little recognition, you turned away. You always thought I was just your emotional daughter, the one who couldn't handle things. But I was the one who handled it all. I was the one who kept this company afloat, not you. My mother's face reddened and she opened her mouth again, this time with a sharpness that stung. You think you can just take everything from us? She hissed. You think this is your business now? You're nothing without us. You owe everything to your father. I shook my head, refusing to let her words affect me. No, Mom. I owe nothing to you. I didn't take revenge. I took back what I earned. Everything I've done, every decision I've made was because I worked for it. Not because you handed it to me. Her words fell flat, her attempts to guilt-trip me pointless. He had no power over me anymore. None of them did. At this point, my father finally looked up from his phone, his eyes narrowing as he tried to make sense of the mess I had just created. This was supposed to be a family business, he snapped, his voice trembling with frustration. You're destroying everything we built. I met his gaze without flinching. You built it, sure. But you never built it with me. And you've certainly never treated me like I was a part of it. You never wanted me to be part of it. You just wanted me to stay in the background, quiet, invisible. But now I'm not. Now I'm taking control of what I rightfully deserve. He took a step toward me, his voice softening, trying to pull me back into the old, familiar guilt trip. You're making a mistake. This will ruin everything, your relationship with us. You can't just walk away like this. But I wasn't interested in what he had to say. I wasn't interested in their excuses, their attempts to turn this back on me. I had spent enough of my life listening to their words and their manipulations. Now it was my turn. I looked at them one last time, not with hate but with finality. Goodbye, I said, my voice quiet but firm. I'm done. And I'm not coming back. There was nothing more to say. They stood there in stunned silence, watching me walk out of the room. The gifts I had brought, now nothing but reminders of a family that had never truly seen me, were left behind on the table. I didn't need them. I didn't need their approval, their validation. I had taken back what was mine, and now I was leaving with my dignity intact. As I closed the door behind me, I felt the weight lift from my shoulders. I didn't look back. Because for the first time I wasn't walking away from them. I was walking toward everything I had worked so hard to build on my own. 1 year had passed since that fateful Christmas, and when I looked back it felt like a lifetime ago. A year ago I was on the edge of losing everything. I was trying so hard to prove my worth to a family who never even cared to see it. Now here I was, a completely different woman. I was running my own consultancy now. I had built it from the ground up, starting with nothing but a few contacts and the experience I'd gained from years of working in the business world. Some of the old clients who had trusted me, not my father, had followed me. They knew my work. They knew my integrity. And they knew that I was the one who had been responsible for their success, not the family legacy that they had always relied on. Business was booming. I was getting referrals left and right. I had the freedom to take on the projects I believed in, and I was finally working for myself. No more answering to anyone. No more pretending to be something I wasn't just to please people who would never appreciate it. My days were now filled with a sense of peace that I hadn't known before. I finally slept through the night without tossing and turning, wondering what the next day would bring. There were no more cold calls from my parents demanding that I come back and help. No more manipulative requests or guilt trips. I was finally free. As for the family business, it was a different story. It had collapsed. Without me, the one who had always kept the clients happy, the one who had held everything together, it had all fallen apart. They had to sell it. I wasn't even surprised. In fact, part of me felt relief. The weight of all the years I had spent trying to fix what was broken was no longer on my shoulders. It was theirs to carry now. My brother, he was jobless. The life he had been handed on a silver platter was no more. He had no experience, no skills, and no work ethic. When the business fell apart, he found himself left with nothing. I never said a word to him, never rubbed it in. He had made his own choices, and now he had to deal with the consequences. As for my parents, they never apologized. They never came to me with regret or remorse. I had expected that, though. They had always been too proud to admit when they were wrong, too caught up in their own egos to see how they had mistreated me. But honestly, I didn't care anymore. Their lack of an apology didn't matter. What mattered was that I had finally found peace on my own terms. And when I sat back in my office late at night looking at everything I had built, I knew I had made the right choice. Sometimes the only way to find peace is to stop proving your worth to people who never saw it.